Askreddit. r/askreddit by Reddify. Doctors of Reddit. Have you ever seen someone outside of work and thought, wow, that person is sweaty, shaky, irritable and insatiably hungry all the time was normal? Obligatory, not a doctor, but my whole family are doctors, seriously. Both my siblings, my mother and my father are doctors. I live abroad, but went home to visit my family over the Christmas holiday and unfortunately had to leave my husband back in the UK. I got off the plane, and I felt pretty crappy. But I just chalked it up to motion sickness from the long airplane ride. However, over the next few days I just got worse and worse. I felt really nauseous and exhausted, and I had terrible pain in my stomach. This went on for about a week. My mum was the first one who called it. Told me I was definitely pregnant. I completely denied it. I had an IUD and I hadn't missed a period. So in my mind there was no way I could be pregnant. When my mum found out I had an IUD, she forced me to go to emergency immediately. Turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy. Luckily they caught it very early. So no damage to my fallopian tubes or my reproductive future. But yeah, she definitely saved me. If I had waited to go to the doctors after I had returned home, it would have been way too late. So very thankful for my genius mum. I won't be able to see her over the holidays this year. Now I really miss her. I have an IUD and an ectopic pregnancy is my worst nightmare. You have some stubborn insides there. For all other girls out there, if you are showing symptoms of pregnancy and you have an IUD, go to the doctor or you could die. Edit. Been reading too much about parasites. It's not oocysts but oocytes. My mother had an ectopic pregnancy before having my brother and me. She wasn't on any BC. Trying 4 kids with my dad. Just got hella unlucky. Fertilized egg got caught in the fallopian tube and just never kept going. She had told her friend that she had a really heavy period that month. She was disappointed she wasn't pregnant, but she was used to having incredibly uncomfortable and long, heavy periods when not on BC. Her friend asked how long this one was going on, and my mom admitted more than a week and a half. This woman my mom was talking to happened to be married to an ectopic pregnancy expert in the city. Next thing my mom knows, she's calling my dad saying, I'm being sent to next city over for emergency surgery. The fallopian tube had burst and she was bleeding out into her lower back. If she hadn't gotten medical attention she would have died of internal bleeding in the next 2 days. So girls, if you are trying and you start bleeding and need to go to the hospital now. What were the symptoms that made you think this? I'm not a doc, just an EMT. A few years ago I was leaving a movie. I stopped to use the bathroom, and as I stood at the urinal, I was overcome by the smell of a GI bleed. There were 3 or 4 people using the stalls, and there were a total of maybe 12 people in the bathroom. I didn't want to make things weird, so after some hemming and hawing I decided my best course of action was to awkwardly yell only if I was bleeding from the just to vetract and shoulder to theresap. As I ran out of the bathroom. Edit. I woke up to an inbox full of extremely kind words from a lot of people. It really made my day to hear all of the encouragement. Today happens to be the first day of going back to school, and I'm off to an auspicious start. Just an EMT. Yeah. You people work really ducking hard and usually know your hit. You don't get paid enough. You see disgusting hit. Deal with crazy people on the daily. And when you drop folks off to my unit, you're nice. You may not have meant anything by it, but don't a ton more than usual and have incredible lower back pain. Doctor up. Second DKA diagnosis in this thread. When I started medical school many years ago, my buddies and I, at different med schools across North America, came home after our first year and noticed our friend Dave had lost a ton of weight. For the next few days, we all made fun of him as he ate a lot, dozen donuts in one sitting, and drank a lot of water. He felt crummy the next weekend. Breath was noticeably sweet. And we made the straight out of the textbook first year med student diagnosis in our heads. We hauled him to the ER where they admitted him. Diagnosed him diabetic ketoacidosis as the first presentation of type 1 diabetes mellitus. And started him on 4th insulin. Dave went on to many great things. Oh yeah. I know Dave. Everyone knows Dave. He did, indeed, go on to do a great many things. Who's that ducker on the balcony with Dave? Nurse here. Found a weird mole on my mom's back. We have a strong family history of melanoma, so I'm super cautious with anything abnormal of the skin. I kept pushing her to get it checked out. Goes to dermatologist and the dermatologist says it's nothing to worry about and that she didn't want to biopsy it. My mom told her to go ahead and biopsy it. Ended up being precancerous. I can't imagine my life without my mom. Thank God we got that one taken care of. Edit. No, not every mole is precancerous. For a mole to be precancerous, they look at it under a microscope and determine its degree of abnormality. If it meets the criteria, for instance, cell shape, size, shape, etc., but is not yet at the stage to be classified as melanoma, it is determined as in situ. Basically meaning it is abnormal, but not enough to be considered melanoma yet, therefore, leading to the term precancerous. Harmless and harmful moles are almost indistinguishable to the eye pretty often. I'm surprised the dermatologist wasn't gonna err on the side of caution. Remember, at least here in America many people think they know better than the drive, or think that they are being taken for their money when a drive order's unnecessary. Ever say I'm just an EMT. Or shucks. You're gonna make me blush. Saw a man sweating profusely. Eyes popping out in the middle of winter with a light sweater on. Told him to see his GP today, to get a thyroid blood test today, and get referred to an endocrinologist for Graves' disease. Called me crazy and to mind my own business. Ended up seeing him in clinic next week during my endocrinology rotation. Hi doc, sorry I called you crazy. This happened to me. I was 14. At dinner in the middle of winter, a nurse stopped me as I reached across the table to pick up my glass and told my parents to have me screened for Graves'. I guess my hands were trembling and my eyes were a bit bugged. Of course not noticeably enough for anyone close to me to notice, though I'd been having a slew of weird symptoms for a while. A week later I was diagnosed with Graves'. My thyroid hormone levels were literally off the charts. Same thing happened to me. I was finally diagnosed at 16. But I had been experiencing a wide variety of symptoms for a while. I honestly, there being treatments or tests, that situation is likely a result of avoiding trouble. My grandfather was the definition of a walking doctor. Was not afraid to ask you about your bowel movements within the first 5 minutes of getting to know you. Sitting on a plane next to him, waiting room of the DMV, lunch, he would talk with everyone and everything if it meant he got an interesting conversation. One time he diagnosed a person he was sitting next to on a flight with von Hippel-Lindau, VHL, which is a rare disease that causes tumors to grow randomly on the body. The guy said specialists he'd been to could not figure out what caused them, and later contacted him after tests were done for the disease to tell him he was correct in his diagnosis. Have tons of other stories similar to this. Is your grandfather Greg House? Seriously could be, but way I better personality. Guy specialized in cardiac, got tired of that, then decided to work with babies. Said whoa, way too much pressure. Then worked with rare diseases. Got bored of that. Then said now I'm becoming a country doctor. I'm an optometrist and I can spot a child with a vision defect at 10 feet. Not all, but particularly the farsighted, amblyopic and those with strabismus. Even a slight eye turn is so obvious to me because I look at eye alignment over and over day in day out. My wife is a first grade teacher, so obviously not a drive. But frequently enough, she tries to get parents to get their kids' eyes checked out due to something she sees in the classroom. Essentially, kids can be struggling and perhaps even receiving services to try and help them close a gap, but then they go to the optometrist and it's like, oh okay, they just couldn't ducking see. The frustration comes from the fact that it sometimes takes months to convince them to go. I got get your kids' eyes checked notes all through elementary school. My father would just tell me to sit closer to the chalkboard in order to see it, and would make plenty of comments about how unathletic and uncoordinated I was. Do you know how hard it is to hit/catch a ball if you can't see it until it's 6 feet from your body? Anyhow, in 8th grade I finally couldn't sit any closer to the chalkboards. I had to get glasses. I was so excited on the way home from the eye doctor. I could see the leaves on the trees. So tell your wife to please keep trying. And also thanks for trying. After note, I'm now the parent of a 7.5-year-old boy who